Hey, Chuckle Crime Nerds. We have a guilty verdict in the Lori Vallow case. Hella freaking Luya. Here are my highlights from Adam Cox, who is Lori's older brother, things he said before trial and before he testified, things he said after, and my breakdown of his actual testimony during trial. Let's go. If you're new here, I'm Annette Lyon, USA Today best-selling author of the suspense novel Just One More and a whole bunch of other stuff. Also award-winning author, former editor, whole bunch of other things. Here we discuss true crime often, but not always, where it intersects with religion. And then we have chocolate on the side because you gotta have something sweet in the middle of all the bitter. I have opinions. I rant. That's what we do here. We respect all faith traditions and those with no faith traditions. That includes my faith as well. A quick reminder to like and subscribe. It really helps the channel and helps other people find this kind of content who would be interested in it. Ready? Let's go. So Adam Cox is Lori's older brother. She had two brothers, Alex being the other. He was, of course, the gunman in this case, and he did a lot of the dirty work in Idaho as well, if you're familiar with that. Alex died December of 2019 under what is officially considered natural causes with blood clots to his lungs, but the timing was very suspicious, and many of us think that something hastened his death. Who knows? Adam Cox is her other brother, and he was close with Charles, and he and Charles tried very hard to rein Lori in and get her help. Unfortunately, he was unsuccessful.
It's going to be so weird. Like probably the weirdest thing that's ever going to happen to me in my life. Almost like it will be if I'm in a dream and this is like a dream or something, you know? Well, my first thoughts were, I thought, Lori just didn't want a lawyer to, trash or, go down an avenue like they did with Chad.
Right.
Because she's still in love with Chad and didn't want her lawyers talking bad about Chad. And when they did, she got mad. So now I think she's like, well, I'm not doing lawyers anymore because I'm going to say what I want to say. I don't want the lawyers have to say. But my first reaction was, she won't say anything. She'll just sit there and be quiet. But then I think there was a highlight clip on the tease that I saw where she said something like something to the reference, like you were saying, that I got plenty of time. That's all I got is time. And so, she may go try to play lawyer.
So much of his testimony was absolutely heartbreaking, coming from a brother. He talked a lot about how voicing his concerns about his sister and her extreme beliefs only got him ostracized from his family. His mother would say things like, well, yeah, she's a little extreme, but so what if she goes to the temple 5 days a week? At least she's doing good things extremely. But Adam could tell that she was not in line with basic beliefs. She was going off the deep end in some serious, scary ways. Charles suspected an affair and all kinds of other things. Adam sided with Charles, but Charles was also cut off from much of the family. We hear about texts between Adam and Charles roughly about the time when Charles found the fake emails that Lori had concocted that would make it look like Charles wanted Chad's help in writing a book and inviting him to come down to Arizona. Yeah, right. Adam was aware that Charles had tried to reach out to Tammy Daybell to say, hey, our spouses, I have some disturbing news. And if you recall with that email, it was opened and then Charles's email address had blocked. We don't know if Tammy read it and blocked it as she thought it was someone playing games, or perhaps, this is my opinion, that Chad saw it and intercepted it and that made sure that she wouldn't see it. We don't know. And probably never will. Another time when I thought it was the jury wondering what happened to Tammy, because we know that Lori ended up marrying Chad and that during all of this and when Charles died, that Chad was still married. So Charles and Adam had a plan to have this intervention trying to get Lori's temple regimen taken away so that at least that extreme element of her faith practice could be, if that was taken away, maybe it would wake her up. The best way to do that was to talk to the stake president, President Holmes, who was a family friend Stake president, again, is someone who can take away a temple recommend, which is the piece of paper that allows you to enter a temple and do ceremonial work there. In order to get that, you have to answer questions essentially that say that yes, you're living up to certain standards and keeping your covenants and whatnot, which clearly Lori was not. A bishop could take away a recommend, I believe, but a stake president can actually excommunicate, and a bishop does not have that power. But also, the stake president was a family friend, so they were planning on doing that. Charles flew in Adam. They were trying to keep all of this a secret from Lori. Adam was supposed to stay with Alex, and um, suddenly Alex is not answering his phone calls or his texts, and that's really odd. Alex always responded, and suddenly is radio silence. So instead of staying at Alex's house, Adam ends up staying at his parents' house. Now, unfortunately, Alex and his parents were in cahoots with Lori, and so they told Lori where he was and what he was doing, and that helped perhaps expedite Charles's death. Adam says that Charles seemed desperate when he talked to him, that when Lori just took off, it was like 50 something days, and he didn't know where she was. She left with Tylee, left JJ behind. He was very concerned when he finally found out she was in Hawaii, and it sounds like she fled to avoid being served divorce papers. So much for, oh, we weren't in the middle of a divorce. Only technicality, because you fled for 72 days. Actually, she ended up staying 2 more weeks after Charles figured out where she was. But that's the only reason the divorce hadn't progressed. Charles called her flighty, and it sounds like literally that you never knew when she would run. So someone who would actually flee, in essence, flighty. The morning of Charles's death, Charles texts that when he first arrived at Lori's rental house, where she had been living for 3 weeks at that point, he texted Adam saying, "Oh my goodness, Alex's truck is here." He said it was really disturbing. Something was off because, again, Alex hadn't been answering his phone calls or his texts, and suddenly he's at Lori's house in the early morning. So something is just really off. Of course, that was an understatement, and of course, he was 100% correct. I don't think he realized the depth of depravity this would end up. That they're planning something, but I don't think a murder was anywhere near on their minds. Suddenly, Charles is no longer responding to Adam's texts, and that seems odd as well. They've been texting all morning. He's trying to come up with some reason. Maybe Charles is having time with JJ today, and it's just Dad and JJ time. Maybe he's managed to make up with Lori, and Lori is insistent that Charles isn't going to contact Adam for the time being while they're making up. He's just coming up with anything he can. And of course, the reality is that Charles is dead at Alex's hand. That possibility never crossed his mind, because why would it? That's completely beyond the scope of most of our comprehension. When he hadn't heard from Charles died on a Thursday morning. He decides to go visit his friend in Tucson, which is one of the reasons he came to Arizona in the first place. He was like this whole Lori thing, as well as seeing his friend and seeing his son, who was also living with his parents. He visits his friend and tells him, that my brother-in-law, it's the weirdest thing. Haven't heard back from Charles. It's a really kind of things just feel weird. So his friend goes, "Oh, what's his last name?" He Googles him. Lo and behold, article pops up saying that yes, Charles Vallow was shot by his brother-in-law, Alex Cox, on Thursday. And I believe this was Saturday. And Adam just fell apart. It was crushed. He felt like his world was just gone. The thing that blew my mind too is that Adam had not heard a word from anyone in his family. Not that Alex was the one who did it. Not that Charles was dead at all. Not from his mother, not from his father, not from his sister Summer. No one reached out to him to tell him that Charles was dead or how it happened. Nothing. No one said anything. That is just so incredibly bizarre. So once he realizes, though, that because of that Google search, he called the one person he felt safe with. Not his own family member, but Kay, Charles's sister, and JJ's biological grandmother. So she had just found out as well, and she testifies to this on Thursday, that we already knew this, that one of Charles's older sons called her and said, Lori just texted me saying the dad's dead. Like, what the heck? And Kay's like, what? I haven't heard anything like this. And so Kay was able to confirm it. I think it was her husband, Larry, actually. He did a Google search, I think, again. And that's how the family's finding out. What kind of freak family are the Coxes? My gosh. I can't even grasp it. The prosecution does ask Adam about the whole Nephi situation and killing Laban. And he gives some of the story. I think my summary is a little better, especially with the context of the rest of Nephi's life, how he could have killed and didn't again. But also, I just want to clarify that a lot of members even forget this. Laban was not a king. He was a very rich leader, but he was not a king. He calls him King Laban, but he wasn't a king in the Book of Mormon. One of the hardest parts for me listening was when Lori then cross-examined her own brother. She was not kind or loving. She starts out by trying to nail down the last time they ever laid eyes on each other, and he did not remember. They used to live kind of up states apart. They both moved around a lot, so they hadn't been in physical vicinity of each other very often over the years, but they used to keep in touch with the occasional phone call and text, but that all stopped as well when things started to fall apart with Charles. And she kept saying things like, what was it, would the last time we saw each other maybe have been at my house when this and that and the other? And he goes, maybe, could have been. Would it have been the time I made this dinner, green chili enchiladas or something or other? And he's like, I don't remember what we ate or what you made. And she's like, well, I made it at every family event for 10, 20 years. You don't remember? I already said I don't remember. Like,
I know the big one is about this chicken enchilada, which I don't remember her ever making chicken enchiladas. So it was such a weird, bizarre thing that she thought that she made chicken enchiladas every time I came to town. So I know her brain isn't like where it should be. I didn't even know, like literally, like, and she's made good food. Like for me, Lori used to make these chocolate chip cookies that had walnuts in it that I loved. But apparently, she's made chicken enchiladas. I just, I didn't live there, so she must have got it confused. She must have made it a bunch, and I just wasn't there to eat them. I don't know. The only green enchiladas that I know, green chili enchiladas, are Jeff's, and Jeff's are amazing, by the way. So I should have said that. You mean Jeff's enchiladas? Did you steal his recipe? I don't know.
And that meeting was kind of the nail in the coffin. He remembers being in the kitchen of the Arizona house, and Lori expressing her weird beliefs. And she goes, what, do you think I'm crazy? And he said, I don't know if you're crazy, but what you're saying is not true. That was the last real conversation they ever had. I'll redirect. There was a question that Lori actually had a decent objection on. The judge did let the question go through, and then Lori was then able to ask follow-up if she wanted to, and she opted not to. But the question that Trina K posed was, didn't Adam find it odd that Alex, who was supposedly this protector, would have a loaded gun in an unsafe place, not being stored properly when JJ was in the house? Didn't that strike him as odd? And he's like, yeah.
Physically, it looks like she's changed. Mentally, she called me Mr. Cox. So in my mind, I'm thinking, is she just trying to play lawyer and act out a script of being a lawyer? One of my friends said, I'm so glad she didn't call you Adam. She doesn't have the right or she doesn't have the privilege. She shouldn't have the privilege to call you Adam after what she's put you through. And at first I thought, I thought it was odd she called me Mr. Cox. And at one point I almost said, why don't you just call me Adam? But I didn't want to disrupt the court to say anything that may cause problems. I tried to be as calm as possible. And then when she started asking me a bunch of questions, then I just was just irritated that I had to sit there and listen to her talk to me.
Let me know what you think in the comments. Leave some chocolate emojis or your comfort food of choice. Let me know what your opinions are on this whole thing. Be sure to subscribe, like, all that good stuff. And until next time, go get yourself some chocolate.